When my husband looked at me in court and said, "I'll take everything from you," I didn't answer him. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't even look angry. I just sat there and listened. The courtroom was quiet in a heavy way. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. The judge was reading papers. Lawyers were whispering. And my husband, Daniel, looked very sure of himself. He said those words like they were already true. Like my life was already over. "I'll take everything from you." For a moment, I thought about the house. The walls I painted. The kitchen floor I cleaned on my knees. The nights I stayed awake worrying about our children. I thought about the years I stayed quiet. The years I said, "It's fine," when it wasn't. The years I told myself this was just how marriage worked. And then something strange happened. I smiled. Not a happy smile. Not a proud smile. Just a small, calm smile. Because in that moment, I realized something my husband never understood. He could take things. But he could not take what I had already rebuilt inside myself. Daniel thought this divorce was about money. About winning. About power. But for me, it was about finally being seen. Rain tapped softly against the courtroom windows. I remember noticing that sound. I remember thinking how gentle it was. So different from the way my marriage ended. When the judge finally looked up and asked Daniel to explain his demands, his voice changed. Just a little. And I knew then. This was not going to end the way he planned. Set up. My name is Margaret Collins, but most people call me Maggie. I am 52 years old. I am a mother of 2 grown children. And for 26 years, I was married to a man who believed love meant control. I met Daniel when I was young. I was 23, working at a small insurance office in Ohio. I didn't have much money, but I had big hopes. Daniel walked into my life like he belonged there. He was confident. He spoke clearly. He knew what he wanted. He told me I was special. That I was different from other women. That he could protect me. At that age, protection sounded like love. We married after 2 years. A small church wedding. White flowers. My mother cried happy tears. My father shook Daniel's hand and said, "Take care of her." In the beginning, Daniel did take care of me. At least, it looked that way. He worked hard. Paid the bills. Liked being respected. When our first child, Evan, was born, Daniel said it made sense for me to stay home. "It's better for the family," he said. When Lily came 3 years later, I didn't question it. I became the mother. The cleaner. The cook. The planner. Daniel became the provider. That was the deal. At first, I didn't mind. I loved my children. I loved making a home. But slowly, things changed. Daniel liked things done a certain way. Dinner at 6. House quiet after 9. Bills never discussed. If I asked about money, he said, "Why are you stressing yourself? I've got it." If I disagreed, he went quiet. And that silence felt like punishment. Over time, I learned how to avoid it. I learned how to speak carefully. How to read his moods. How to adjust myself. Years passed like that. Evan grew tall. Lily grew thoughtful and quiet. I noticed things, but I ignored them. Daniel correcting me in front of others. Daniel deciding things without asking. Daniel reminding me that everything we had came from him. Once, during an argument, he said, "You wouldn't survive without me." He laughed after he said it. I didn't. That night, I stood alone in the kitchen. The house was dark. The clock ticked loudly. I realized I had not felt like myself in a very long time. When Lily went to high school, I took a part-time job at the local library. It felt small, but it felt mine. Daniel didn't like it. "Why do you need to work?" he asked. "Isn't this family enough?" I told him I wanted purpose. He told me I was being ungrateful. That was when the distance began to grow. Not loudly. Not suddenly. Quietly. And by the time Daniel asked for a divorce, I was tired. Not angry. Not bitter. Just tired of disappearing. Rising conflict. The problems did not arrive all at once. They came quietly. Like dust settling in corners you stop checking. At first, it was small things. Daniel started keeping his phone face down on the table. He stayed later at work. He stopped asking about my day. When I talked, he nodded without listening. When I stopped talking, he didn't notice. Our home still looked normal from the outside. Clean yard. Lights on at night. Family photos on the wall. But inside, something was thinning. Money became his favorite weapon. Not loud. Not obvious. Just constant. If the grocery bill was higher, he frowned. If the kids needed something extra, he sighed. "Do you know how hard I work?" he would say. And I did know. I always knew. But what he didn't see was how hard I worked too. Just without a paycheck. Without praise. One evening, Evan asked about college out of state. Daniel didn't even look at him. "That's expensive," he said. "We'll see." Evan looked at me. I looked away. That night, I cried quietly in the bathroom so no one would hear. Another time, Lily asked if she could join a school trip. Daniel said no before she finished her sentence. "She doesn't need it," he said. "It's a waste." Lily stopped asking after that. I began to notice how often Daniel used words like mine and I. My money. My house. My rules. He never said ours anymore. When I worked at the library, I felt something wake up inside me. Not confidence. Just breath. I talked to people. Helped children find books. Smelled old paper and coffee. Daniel hated how happy I looked when I came home. "You're different," he said once. And not kindly. I asked him what he meant. "I don't know," he said. "You think you're independent now." That word, independent, sounded like an insult to him. Our arguments never exploded. They faded. He would speak. I would go quiet. And silence would fill the space between us. I started writing things down. Not plans. Not complaints. Just dates. Words he said. Things that made my stomach twist. I didn't know why. I just knew I needed to remember. Then one night, during a small argument about money, Daniel said something that stayed with me. "You should be grateful," he said. "I gave you a life." He didn't say we built a life. He said I gave you one. That night, I slept on the couch. A week later, he told me he wanted a divorce. Not sadly. Not angrily. Like he was canceling a subscription. "I'm done," he said. "This isn't working." I nodded. I surprised myself by not begging. But when lawyers became involved, Daniel changed. He stopped being distant and became sharp. He wanted the house. The savings. The retirement fund. He said I could start over somewhere cheap. When I tried to speak, he cut me off. "You don't need much," he said. "You never did." That was when fear finally arrived. Not loud fear. Quiet fear. The kind that keeps you awake at night. I spoke to a lawyer for the first time. Her name was Susan Miller. She listened. Really listened. And when I finished talking, she said softly, "Maggie, this isn't fair." No one had ever said that to me before. Turning point. The day of the first court hearing arrived quietly. No music. No drama. Just gray skies and paperwork. Daniel walked into the courtroom like he owned it. Suit pressed. Chin lifted. He didn't look at me. I sat beside Susan. My hands shook, but my voice stayed calm. When Daniel's lawyer spoke, it felt unreal. They talked about my life like it was a list of objects. The house. The accounts. The car. And then Daniel leaned forward and said it. "I'll take everything from you." Not loudly. Not angrily. Confidently. Something settled inside me then. Not rage. Not revenge. Clarity. Susan stood up. And one by one, she began to speak. About finances Daniel hid. About accounts I never knew existed. About patterns. Daniel shifted in his seat. The judge asked questions. Daniel answered too quickly. Then too slowly. For the first time, his confidence cracked. He looked at me. Really looked. And I saw something new in his eyes. Fear. Not of losing money. But of losing control. The court ordered further review. More documents. More truth. Daniel's world began to narrow. At home, he sent angry messages. Accused me of betrayal. I didn't reply. I was done explaining myself. Weeks passed. Then months. The final hearing came on a rainy morning. The judge spoke calmly. Assets would be divided fairly. Support would be granted. Daniel did not get everything. He stared straight ahead. No smile. No words. I felt no joy. Only relief. After court, Daniel walked past me without speaking. And that was it. 26 years ended without a goodbye. I went home to my small apartment. Made tea. Sat by the window. The rain fell softly. And for the first time in years, I felt safe inside my own thoughts. Resolution. After the divorce papers were signed and the court dates ended, life became very quiet. Not the kind of quiet that feels empty. But the kind that feels unfamiliar. I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't fancy. Cream-colored walls. Old carpet. A window that faced a parking lot. But it was mine. The first night there, I slept on a mattress on the floor. No headboard. No framed photos yet. I listened to the hum of traffic outside. And for the first time in years, I slept without fear of doing something wrong. The silence did not judge me. At first, I didn't know what to do with my days. For so long, my time belonged to everyone else. I woke up early out of habit. Made coffee for 1 cup instead of 4. Sat at the small table and watched steam rise from the mug. It felt strange to move slowly without guilt. Daniel did not call. And I was thankful for that. Evan checked on me often. He called every Sunday night. "You okay, Mom?" he asked. I always said yes. Even when I wasn't sure yet. Lily visited a few weeks later. She looked around my apartment quietly. "It's peaceful," she said. That word stayed with me. Peaceful. I went back to the library full-time. The job didn't pay much, but it paid me something more important. Respect. People smiled at me there. Children asked me questions. I felt useful without feeling small. Some evenings, I cried without knowing why. Not loud crying. Just tears that came while folding laundry or washing dishes. I let them come. Healing, I learned, is not neat. I bought a used couch from a woman named Karen who lived down the hall. She helped me carry it inside. Fresh start? She asked. I nodded. Yes, I said. That's exactly what this is. Little by little, I filled the space. A lamp by the window. A plant that almost died before I learned how much water it needed. I hung photos of Evan and Lily. Not to remember the past, but to honor the love that stayed. Daniel faded into memory faster than I expected. Sometimes, I would see him in my mind the way he used to sit at the head of the table. So certain. So sure. But those images lost their weight. One afternoon, months later, I ran into him at the grocery store. He looked smaller. Not weaker. Just less important. We nodded at each other. No words. And that was enough. The hardest part was learning who I was without being managed. I learned what foods I liked. What music calmed me. What time I preferred to wake up. I learned that I liked rain. That I liked quiet mornings. That I liked myself when no one was measuring me. One night, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and realized something simple. I was no longer afraid. Not of being alone. Not of failing. Not of being forgotten. Because I finally remembered myself. Ending. People sometimes ask me if I regret staying in my marriage for so long. They ask it gently. Like they are afraid the answer might hurt me. I always pause before answering. Not because I don't know. But because regret is a complicated word. I don't regret loving someone with my whole heart. I don't regret raising my children in that home. I don't regret surviving the only way I knew how at the time. But I do regret how long I stayed silent. I regret how often I told myself that my feelings were not important. How often I chose peace on the surface instead of truth underneath. How often I believed that being strong meant being quiet. For many years, I thought strength was endurance. I thought it meant holding everything together. Smiling when things hurt. Explaining away the pain so others would feel comfortable. But strength, I have learned, is also knowing when to stop. It is knowing when love has turned into control. When patience has turned into fear. When loyalty has turned into self-erasure. After the divorce, people expected me to feel angry. They expected bitterness. They expected me to celebrate. But what I felt was something else. I felt calm. A calm that came after a long storm. A calm that felt earned. My life now is very simple. I wake up early, not because someone expects it, but because my body wants to. I make coffee and drink it slowly, standing by the window. Sometimes I watch the sun rise. Sometimes I watch the rain fall. I go to work. I talk to people. I come home to quiet. And the quiet feels safe. In the evenings, I sit at my small kitchen table. I read. I write notes to myself. I think. Sometimes memories come back. Not the painful ones. Just moments. A family dinner. A child laughing. A younger version of me who thought love meant giving everything away. When those memories come, I don't push them away. I let them pass. Because they are part of my story. Not the whole story. Evan and Lily are grown now. They see me differently. Not as someone fragile. Not as someone broken. But as someone who chose herself. That matters more to me than any apology Daniel could ever give. I do not hate my ex-husband. Hate would keep me tied to him. Instead, I let him go. I wish him no harm. But I no longer carry his weight. If you are listening to this story, maybe something in it feels familiar. Maybe you recognize the quiet, the shrinking, the careful way of living. If so, please listen closely. You do not have to wait for permission to change your life. You do not have to wait until everything falls apart. You are allowed to choose yourself before you disappear. Leaving does not mean you failed. Sometimes, leaving means you finally understood the lesson. There is a life after fear. There is a life after control. There is a life where your voice does not shake when you speak. I am living proof of that. I am not extraordinary. I am not fearless. I am just a woman who stopped ignoring her own pain. And that made all the difference. Today, when I look at myself in the mirror, I see someone familiar again. Someone steady. Someone real. I see a woman who knows her worth, even if it took a long time to learn. If someone ever looks at you and says, "I'll take everything from you," remember this. They are only speaking about things. And the most important parts of you are not things. Your dignity. Your peace. Your sense of self. Those cannot be taken. They can only be given away. And once you stop giving them away, everything changes. That is the quiet truth I carry with me now. And it is enough.